Hi, folks. Today, I'd like to talk to you about public relations departments and firms. So let me go ahead and share my screen and let's get started. Okay, let's get going. So let's start here. In the past, whenever we talked about public relations, it was all about just promotion and publicity. There was a movement to the West. People were trying to sell land and other retail products, and it was just about promoting those products. But as time went on, those things changed. Today, public relations influence, um, you know, all of the top level management folks. They focus on building relationships. They say, we will give you return on investment, ROI, as you see that over here on the slide. It's all relationship building. So we've really kind of like the nature of public relations has changed from historically what it was like to today, where it's all about a very complex process. There's negotiation, there's compromise that we have to do with a lot of key audiences. So you work very closely with the management and find ways for the management to save money, reduce cost of litigation, be ahead of the competitor. Those are the kinds of influences that we exercise today. So what I'd like to start with, if I had to introduce you, it would be to these communication conglomerates. Okay, so you're seeing some four big names here. There's WPP, which is the largest conglomerate. There's the Omnicom Group, there's Publicis, and there's the Interpublic Group. Okay, so these are giant conglomerates. And when I say conglomerates, I'm really talking about this term, and make note of it, is called a holding company. A holding company is basically a company that has a ton of other companies inside of it. Okay, so WPP, for example, which is a global organization, so are all the other three that you see up here on the screen. These are global corporations. So within that corporation, you may have, let's say WPP has 10 advertising agencies, 10 PR agencies, 2 digital agencies, 2 promotion and, billboard companies, 2 market research companies, right? It could have a lot of these different companies within just WPP. And so whenever these holding companies, if they need to go get an account, right? Let's say Pepsi, they want Pepsi, they can negotiate some of their enterprise-based contracts, and they can say, well, we've got so many different companies, and so we would love to just keep the Pepsi account within WPP and find ways for us to all work together. That way, there is less silo and there's more conversations between companies. But keep in mind that each of these organizations, each of these agencies, PR agencies, ad agencies, they are working independently. Sometimes they have to report their major findings and earnings and revenues, things like that, with their WPP head office, right? But in general, they're working, pretty much independently. So that's kind of what these companies look like. So when you're trying to look for a job, right? I'll go back to the last slide. If you're looking for a job, make sure you write these 4 names down. And then within WPP, if you click on their website, you will see what the number of things that open up. Look at your location and scroll down to see, okay, what are the companies they have where I am, and how do I go about finding whether they're offering internships or jobs, right? So dig deeper, take the time to just look at what are all the different brands, what are they working on, and that will give you some clarity on applications and internships and deadlines and job descriptions and things like that, and the skills that they need for that particular job. Okay, so let's move on. So definitely keep in mind these four names. Definitely keep in mind this term, holding company. Um, and we can just look at just specifically PR here. You're seeing uh, BCW, which is actually Birth and Marsteller. Now it merged, and so it's called BCW. Edelman, which is one of the largest independent public relations firms worldwide. Um, Weber Shandwick, Fleischmann Hillard, Ketchum, Porto Novelli. These are all of these. Ogilvy. Ogilvy actually is known for its advertising, but it also has a PR company, which is really great. I've actually worked with them. So, these are some companies that are very big and, they are in all different parts of the country and the world, really. BCW, which was Burson Marsteller. I worked with Burson Marsteller when I was in India, when I was in my 20s. And so, they've been around a long time and they do some great work. So if you're looking for something, this is where you could get started. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the global reach of some of these companies. Now you see the United States is fairly saturated, and so agencies tend to go outside the country in different parts of the world. They generate revenue from abroad. So a big company like Edelman, for example, just look, it has, like, if you go on their website, you will see 63 different offices, 30 different countries, and it's really fun, working with companies that are doing global work, because especially if you like culture and you like uh, things, discoveries or what makes people tick, and uh, why they think of an issue differently, why they react differently, why they buy differently, and what are the different strategies that we need for all of these different countries, because you can't use the same. It's not one size fit all. So it's a really extraordinary and really fun to discover, these different companies. And some of these companies, they don't have, maybe they're not big enough and they may not have enough money to set up their own companies within a country, but they could partner with one of those companies that is doing really well in that country. And so you see very different combinations of each, of how companies are set up. But really at this point, there's such a global reach, that a large footprint that a lot of these companies have. Okay, moving on, what are the different services that are provided by these companies? So let's talk a little bit about that. Now, there are specialty services and there are general services. So I'll start here, and what you see on that slide are general services. Okay, so today, marketing and PR, like, and advertising, a lot of these things are coming together, and so we'll just put it as a general service marketing communication, while the focus continues to be PR. They do a lot of relationship building, right? So community relationships need to be built. Relationships with the media need to be built so that they would cover stories about your brand. Writing speeches, which is more of an internal function. Sometimes there are PR departments within a company, and they're focused on executive communication. But sometimes, you find big PR agencies offering a service like that as well. There are specialty firms that do financial relations, but there are also some very one-on-one financial communications with the stakeholders. You might see a general service like that provided as well. Any kind of new brand, product, or service line that it has been, released, and they need to talk about it and inaugurate it and celebrate it. Any kind of event around that is taken care of by a public relations firm. Any kind of research and evaluation of tactics and strategies that were implemented. Often the PR agency will, figure out what is needed, they actually do the event and then evaluate how that event went, right, in many, many different ways. So a lot of this kind of stuff is done by PR companies, and it's like one of those general service categories that is offered by these firms. They also have specialty services, right? So let's say something went seriously wrong and they need, some crisis management, they need crisis communication, right? Let's say your client is an airline company and there was a crash, and they need someone who can help share that message and appease the public and share information, things like that. There are often, and we've seen a lot of these kind of strikes, right? Union strikes, labor strikes. You need specialty, people who understand how to deal with a PR crisis like that one, to handle a crisis like that. Political PR, very much specialty, especially during an election year. They really, they're very busy. It's a specialty firm. They only focus on political PR. In general, if you're interested in a specific field, let's say healthcare or PR or sports, try to get internships in those areas. And you, if possible, work with a PR firm that focuses, that concentrates, that specializes, that has an expertise in that area. And it really makes a big difference when you're then looking for a job, because this is what you like. You've met people in that company, you know what that job is like, and they know you, and it's easier to get a job in that same field again. Otherwise, it's just hard. Okay, let's move on to a structure of the PR firm. So honestly, a public relations firm, most, by the way, are very small, right? 1 to 2 people, less than 10 people. Most firms are small. But the big names I gave you, the big conglomerates, WPP, Publicis, Interpublic, Omnicom, the companies that they own, those companies are huge. And a lot of them, like I said, are all over the world in different cities. So larger firms are a lot more hierarchical, right? So you need to basically start at the bottom and then climb up to the top. Okay, so the CEOs at the top, obviously, but let's start at the bottom, because that's kind of where you would be when you first start. What you don't see on this list is an intern, who is really at the end of the list that you're seeing here. So assistant account executive does a lot of admin work. Interns often work with these executives to really understand just like the nuts and bolts, like it's busy work, honestly. But if you are at an internship and they ask you to get coffee instead of like teaching you some PR work, well, you need to really ask that question. Am I in the right spot, right? Most people care. They hire interns because, they want to train the next, uh, group of executives that will eventually become directors. But you always see a couple bad apples here and there. Okay, so account executives would focus on a few accounts. So you don't take complete ownership of that account, but you are a part of a team that's working on that particular client under the supervision of supervisors, right? So directors is a very good level, well-paying level, and directors are putting together proposals, doing very big presentations. And then on top of that, director level is the vice president level, which is the place where, you know, these are the guys who actually bring in business. Okay, so it's a really important job, and you got to earn it. You got to pay your dues, and then you got to earn it. So VP sells new business, right? They're in charge of like pitching to the client to say, hey, we've got some great ideas. Why don't you work with us? We have a great team, and we'll do good for you, right? We'll help your business. So that's what that VP level job does. And often the VP will work with directors. Sometimes the directors and the VPs, if it's a slightly bigger firm, would go out and pitch business. And if it's a smaller firm, then it's usually the VP and the CEO that would go out and pitch business. And the CEO, like I said, is on the top. If you're in a smaller company, you tend to wear multiple hats. So you do a lot of different things. Okay, so let's then move on to the next slide here. Let's talk about how a public relations firm gets business. So I'll tell you, I mean, I've been on the client side and I've been on the agency side, and I like them both. Very different challenges. But let's talk about let's say I'm on the client side, I am Nike, and I would like, I have this new shoe coming out, and I want to get some ideas I want to know which PR firm to work with, really. So what I do is I will write up what we called an RFP, which is a request for proposal. So I'll write it up and it will say, we're coming out with a new product. It's a shoe that's better for adults who like to run, and they wear it for strength training and things, but it's for older groups, so it's like 40 plus. So I'd like to create a really great PR campaign to get the word out there, but I'm looking for some great ideas, and I'm going to give my business to the firm that comes up with the best idea. My budget is so and so, my timeline is so and so. Send me your ideas. Okay, so this is what I would do. I would send it out to 10 companies that I know I'd like to work with, right? That have a great reputation and may have worked in my sports category before or have won awards or whatever, right? Okay, so now let me say I am on the other side, right? So let's say I'm an agency and I am a VP and I'm thinking, oh, I can get that business because he sent me something, so he's interested in my company, right? In my agency. So I would work with the CEO, directors, blah, 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 get everyone together, and I'd say, let's come up with a plan, a presentation plan. And then let's pitch this idea to this Nike person, right? Who's looking for business, for agencies to represent them. So that's what a public relation firm would do. They would put something together, and if 10 agencies have been sent this information, all 10 people will put that agency stuff together, the little pitch together, and then there will be a pitch day at Nike. And everyone's given a different time slot. So you would go in there, you would present, you'd come back out, and then, all 10 agencies would do that. And then the Nike group client side will sit and decide, oh, I really like this idea. I think that would be a good one to work with. Or that agency, I don't think they understand our category, so maybe not. Or, in terms of pricing, this agency did a great job. Or, this agency seems like they have a really good group of people, right? And I think they'll pay us a lot more attention. It could be whatever reason, it could be multiple reasons, it could be a combination of them, which will finally make that decision, right? So just wanted to share, right? Eventually I might call up Nike as a Nike representative and say, hey, we loved your idea. We would love to work with you, right? And that's how the public relation firm would get business. So again, just something to keep in mind, RFP, request for proposal. This is how public relation firms get business. They would respond to a request for proposal. They would go pitch. And if their idea is well liked, then they get the job. Okay, so how do they charge? Let's say they've got the job. There are different structures, and different size of agencies would have different structures, right? But in general, there's a retainer fee, which you see a lot in public relations firms, which kind of is their bread and butter. It keeps them going. So you would say, every month, I'm going to charge you $5,000, and I will be doing these 10 things for you every month. That is different from all the other things you may want to do, but this is what I will charge you as a fixed monthly charge so that you can avail my staff and my services, whatever you need. Okay, so that's the retainer fee. Some organizations, some agencies would do a retainer fee, but then let's say Nike says, I also want to have another event in Brazil, right? And because I think Brazil is a great market for us. So I just want to throw an event for all the media. I want to bring the media in one room. We want to talk about our shoes. We'll get our top level designers and executives up there, and the media can ask them questions about this particular product, and hopefully they'll write about the shoe and then, in their papers, and then hopefully, people will buy our shoes. Okay, now that's a separate event, right? That has got nothing to, that's not a retainer fee. So this agency would say, okay, well, we obviously do the monthly retainer, but in addition to that, let's do a fixed project fee. It's going to cost you $25,000 to get that going in Brazil. Okay, so that's a fixed fee and it's based on that project. And then some agencies, if they're really small, they might even say, okay, well, you need us to do these 5 things. So it's going to cost you, we charge you $500 an hour. We have 4 people working on this thing every hour, and our minimum is 10 hours. So you can just pay me based on that. But if you want me to come to you, then you'll have to pay for my hotel, and not just mine, like whoever is coming with me, their hotel room, their accommodation, their food, uh, you know, daily expenses. So you'd have to pay for that. Oh, and then if you want some things printed, then we'll just charge you at actuals as well. So we'll get stuff printed, we'll just give you the receipts. You got to pay for that as well. So those are the different kinds of structures that you see with a public relations agency. Of course, there are many other combinations, but these are just the big ones. Okay, moving on to PR departments in corporations. So we've been talking about agencies all along, right? But I want to talk to you about client side. I want to talk to you about working in a PR department at a corporation like Apple or Samsung or Lululemon or whatever. Like, it's a corporation, it's a large corporation, and there's a PR department in it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that. So, honestly, the role of the PR folks is different in different corporations. Some corporations have, if they're a very large organization, they would like to have a PR department, but not really just a standalone PR department. They could probably have 2 or 3 people in PR, but as part of the marketing department, right? So the marketing department would do advertising and PR and some other things, right? Sometimes it's combined with HR, sometimes it's combined with employee relations, right? I mean, or it could be so many different executive communication, like it could be part of a larger department like that. And they would do multiple things, right? Yes, they would do PR stuff specifically, so event management, relationship building, corporate reputation work, but the social media stuff. But they would also help out, like we could work with HR and write our employee newsletter, or we can work with our media marketing and media team, and we can help out with press release writing. So it's really the type of organization. The larger ones will have PR, but not as a standalone, but it's probably a part of a larger department. The smaller ones, very small companies, they don't do a lot of stuff, right? So they probably need somebody to work on their social media campaign, or just maybe build a relationship with a media person. So if you had to do something interesting, that you would share that out, right? Other than that, you don't do anything else. But it's a role by itself, but it's really a small. If PR as a department, as a function, is looked upon as something really important, right? Connected with management, more strategic in the way they approach things, things that, connect them with the bottom line, with the profit margins, right? With the return on investment. If the PR department is viewed as something like that, then they have a larger role. If they're just looked upon as like, oh, we need to do an event, let's call our PR department, let them handle it, right? That's very different from a more strategic, thought through role uh, in the company. And it really does depend on, what the perception of public relations is within that company and for the management. Okay. So in larger companies, public relations professionals, and if you want to work in this field, you want to be here, right? Where the management values you, that you, within that hierarchy, you are up ahead, you're up above, that they care about what you have to say. And often the work that you do will involve research, will involve numbers, will involve the profit margin, will involve really understanding the customers, building relationships with them, building relationships with media. There's a strategic importance to your role. That's where you need to be if you really want to get into the public relations business. Okay, so there are different levels of influence, right, within a company. There's an advisory, there's a compulsory advisory, and then there's a concurring authority. So, when you are at a business that doesn't value public relations as much, they're going to ask you to do events. Or maybe they might ask you, what do people think about it, right? Just maybe something simple as that. So that's advisory is not a really important role. Um, Compulsory advisory, on the other hand, is a lot more serious role where the management actually cares to ask you. For example, there was a time where several years ago, there was the Tylenol crisis. People took a Tylenol and died. There was something in the Tylenol that killed people, right? And the PR department was asked, what can we do? How do we fix this? And the first advice that was given was, you might want to just pull the products out, and we'll just notify the media about the recall, and then we'll go from there. So that's the first thing we want to do. That's crisis communication. So those are the kinds of things where the management does take the advice of the PR department and does something about it. Okay. The third one that you see is called concurring authority, which basically is part of organizations that where PR is very important, and without the approval of PR, the management cannot do anything, right? But in these kinds of setups, law, HR, all of those departments, also, legal department, also are important. So it just takes time. It's clunky. It takes time for things to move forward. But these guys, they're very successful in controlling information that needs to stay inside the company, or controlling information that may have gone out, but finding ways to control that, right? So it does limit the ability of the PR folks to really, connect quickly with their audiences because of that law, the legal aspect that the company has put in place for certain protocols. But this at least is a way where PR matters, right? That, whatever you say matters. Okay. So you would have to cooperate with lots of different departments as a PR person, right? Whether you're in a large company or whether you're in a smaller company that has maybe some departments, but it's just small, right? You have to connect and cooperate with legal, with human resources, with advertising, with marketing. You have to connect, you have to build relationships with all of these, right? Legal, because anything you put out, they want people to sign it, it's contractual, things like that. Human resources, because if you want to connect internally with your employees, then you have to work with the HR department and get their sign off before you can talk about employees. You have to work with advertising, because sometimes you want to know what the goal is, right? Is the goal to increase sales, or is the goal to work on brand reputation, right? If it's to increase sales, then you should let advertising department folks handle that. If it's about building relationships, then it should be a PR, a brand reputation, brand lift studies. Those are all PR things, right? So need to understand and work together with these departments. Similarly with marketing, you know, understand what the strategy is and then figure out what is your job, what you can do, what you can achieve, and what somebody else in the marketing department can achieve, because they could be very different things. All right. So let's just look at quickly what this diagram looks like, right? So most marketing communication, bigger companies will have a marketing communication department, and you have the senior vice president on the top, of this hierarchy. And then you see a lot of VPs, and then you see directors, right? And different kinds of leaders. So understand what a hierarchy like this works. Often, sometimes when there are so many different departments, they get siloed. So each department is not talking with the other department, right? That's problem. But with large organizations, it does happen. Um, when I was working with Gannett, which is a huge corporation, everything was really siloed. So it does kind of hamper communication and just working with each other. They try, everyone tries, but it's hard. So you see, there is within this hierarchy chart that you're seeing, you see VP marketing of communication, one person's focused on global business, the other person's focused on sales and distribution. Then there's a VP who focuses on employee communication. Then there's a VP that focuses on executive communication. Then there's a VP that focuses on corporate affairs and citizenship, which is more corporate social responsibility, stakeholder relationships, and stuff like that. Okay, so you see each of these are different, but what you want to see is go all the way down and you see an intern, right? So wherever you start, you're going to start at the bottom there, and then slowly, you move up in that chain. Similarly, you see this particular chart, it's pretty similar. You have the CEO, you have the VP, and then the SVP of corporate communication reports to the VP or the global marketing officer, and often we call chief marketing officer, CMO, or GMO in this case, right? Now, the SVP is in charge of lots of different things, and each of those things would have a different department. And so for you to maybe start at the intern level and slowly move up to the director levels and the analysts to the SVPs to the EVPs, right? So it's a hierarchical process. You see that a lot more in corporations than you see in agencies, although it's there too. So just helping you understand the lay of the land of what these departments and these hierarchies look like. Okay. So when a corporation hires a PR agency, these are the expectations that the corporation has. Okay. If I were to hire a PR, if I'm Nike, right? I'm Nike and I work in the PR department at Nike, and I want to hire an agency. My hope is that the agency that I finally pick really understands my business, the shoe business, the sports business, the industry, the competitors. Also, I want the agency to be very prompt, right? If I'm paying money for a service, I want to make sure that I'm getting the stuff that I need at the time I need it. And I need the work to be really well done, because the hope is that you have a bunch of people who are working on this account. Everybody is looking at it. There are multiple eyes on it. People are spending time on it. And therefore, you're going to do good, accurate work, right? And whatever you do, ultimately, I care about the bottom line, right? Am I going to be selling more shoes? Will the reputation of Nike stay amazing as usual? Are you going to continue to build my brand reputation while selling my work, my shoes? That's what I'm looking for, right? So I would also hope, in addition to all this, that you don't have Reebok or Essex or Brooks as your competitor, right? My competitor. I hope you don't have that competitor as your client. You can't be serving Nike and Reebok, right? You can't. It's not fair. It's not right. It's not ethical. So I'm looking for that kind of stuff as Nike, as the organization, looking for the best PR firm. But I also know what a PR firm does for me. Okay. I also know that. I know that this PR firm would be perfect for Nike because they are a specialty sports shop, right? That's what they do. They have the expertise, they have the right people for the job. And they've won multiple awards. And so they're so credible that it's probably a good one to go to, right? So a lot of PR agencies, because they pay well, pay employees to do the work who are professional, who have specific expertise. Also, these PR firms are global. So if I want to go to Brazil or to Vietnam, or to Czech Republic, I'll be able to, make that happen because this PR firm is well connected and has offices everywhere. So I'm looking for these things, and I know in my mind why I would choose a PR company over just doing promotions with my PR folks who are part of the marketing department in my company, right? But there are some disadvantages to a public relations company, which all corporations know. And we're going to end our conversation with that. Sometimes a PR company does not know enough about the client, right? There are PR companies who may not know enough about Nike, not enough, like not as well as somebody who's working in the PR department of Nike, right? So we have to keep that into account. Also, a PR company often has multiple clients. Nike is not their only client. So while PR folks within a department would know a lot, would have all the time in the world to work on just their brand, PR companies, on the other hand, have multiple clients. So you're not going to get all that attention, right? That somebody who is internal would. Sometimes cost makes a very big difference, right? Cost, when you hire somebody internal, they're doing a lot of stuff for you, right? So yes, you may be paying for their insurance and everything, but they do a lot of stuff for you. But a PR company is just ridiculously expensive. They're going to ask for a retainer fee. They would ask for, for every project. They may ask for overtime. There's just a lot of cost associated with hiring an external firm. So that could be something that you really need to think about, right? You also don't want to share everything about your brand and techniques and all this like secretive stuff, but sometimes you have to share that information with a PR company. And I don't know. I mean, how do you feel about that? It's up for the debate right there. And finally, there are PR department employees, people who work in Nike, right? Who would say, well, we're good enough. Like, why do we need to hire another company, right? So there is a little bit of that disapproval that you deal with as well. So in this little video, we've talked about PR departments and PR firms, and I hope that you learned something new today. Thank you.